Good morning, channel friends. I couldn't wait to find the right piece to create a restyling with this fantastic transfer. Actually, it's a very unique design and I want to show you how it looks applied in a more modern way. That's because, in my opinion, straight out of the packaging it doesn't really do it justice, but I truly think it's stunning. That's why I chose this chest of drawers to try and modernize it, because it really has some very beautiful and elegant shapes, but the color and perhaps the finish are a bit heavy, a bit old-fashioned. I'm not saying it can't look good in some homes, of course, but in my opinion, it will be more suitable for any type of house, style, or setting, and above all, for any kind of person, because we're going to lighten it up and make it even more chic. Franco, what do you think? Shall we start? I'll start by removing the handles, because I'll put them back on later, as they'll definitely look good, but obviously not like this. They're a bit vintage. They're very beautiful handles, and they're removed in a very clever way, because inside there's actually a little round bolt, really cute, which just needs to be unscrewed. And the handles are removed. There we go. Now I'll take it and set it aside, but first I'll screw it back in. That way I won't lose any of the pieces. On this lovely piece of furniture, I'm going to remove the protective varnish, which is a bit shiny and dark, but only on the first two drawers, which are also the smallest ones. This is an aesthetic choice, because I really want it to have this, let's say, lightness on the top part of the furniture. However, I'll paint the rest. I also like to bring out this natural look. Underneath there's a sort of briar wood. But I'll understand once I remove everything. I use my paint stripper and be careful about this. There are some pieces of furniture that have a polyurethane finish, which is a kind of plastic, so it's not actually paint. The paint stripper removes paint, but obviously it doesn't remove plastic. Here, I've already done a test in a hidden spot at the back of the furniture, and I saw that it comes off. So I'm good to go. Before grabbing the can and applying it all over the furniture, do this test in one spot and leave it to work for 10 minutes. If you see it crinkle up and it works, then you're good to go. Here, I'm almost sure I'll need to do 2 coats. What does that mean? First, I'll apply it once, like I'm doing now. Obviously, you should never be stingy. You need to apply a fairly generous layer. Once it has done its job, once it has worked, I will remove the first layer with the spatula, and I'll go apply it a second time. Why is that? Because, of course, this finish is very well done and very thick. And so, to remove everything completely, I really need to do at least 2 coats. Remember, why should you always choose a paint stripper like this one, and not a more aggressive one? Because you end up breathing in that aggressive stripper, because it's actually harmful to your hands, and because it's simply not easy to use a paint stripper that's very effective, but also very, very harsh. This one is effective, but it's also gentle, it's biodegradable, and, above all, it doesn't pollute. And you won't harm yourself while using it, so I let it work for at least 15 minutes. Be careful, if you're in the sun or out in the open air, you need to cover it. If it dries out, it won't work. It only works if it stays damp. If you see that it's hot and it starts to dry out, take a bit more and keep massaging it in, like this. Go over it again briefly, move it a little bit, but you mustn't let the paint remover dry out, because as soon as it dries, it stops working. If necessary, use a spray bottle and spray it. I'll move on to the other drawer. As you can see here, it has already worked. It's really been less than 10 minutes. What does that mean? It means that in this spot the paint remover is really taking effect. And as you can see, it's as if it's dried out. But it's really only been 10 minutes, so now we'll start removing it, because, as you can see from the color, it's starting to remove the first layer of patina. Now I'll take off the first layer of patina everywhere and reapply the paint remover. And I'll let it work a second time, because the glossy layer hasn't been completely removed. I'm applying a second coat of paint remover. Be careful never to be stingy. It's better to be a bit generous. I remove the paint remover. As you can see, it's still soft, it hasn't dried out, but look how yellow it is. This means it has removed another good amount of the plastic finish. There we go. It's extremely important never to make the mistake of letting it dry out, because otherwise you really won't be able to get it off anymore. This is exactly the limit. You can't leave it any longer than this. To check if we've actually done a really good job, and to see if 2 coats are truly enough for this very thick, dense paint, I carefully remove the excess with just a tiny bit of water and a small amount of ammonia. Ammonia is absolutely amazing because it really removes that slightly milky, cloudy finish left behind by the paint remover. Make sure to use a thoroughly wrung-out sponge, because you absolutely must not add or introduce any water, any moisture. Onto our piece of furniture. You see, our job now is to check whether we've removed everything or if there's still something left to take off. For this drawer, we'll create a different color, starting with Olivia. And I'll add a bit of Rocher because I want to lighten it up, without losing its warmth. In this jar, I have about 2 fingers worth of Olivia. It's a color I've used for many projects, and I had a bit left over, just about 2 fingers, and I hope it will be enough for my chest of drawers, but if it's not, I'll just make some more. So, I take the Rocher and pour it straight in here, in this case. I'm not going to weigh the color, because I want to do it by eye, but if you feel more comfortable, you can add it spoonful by spoonful. Or you can also weigh it. I stir it very well. I try to see if the shade is already the one I have in mind. And always remember that when it dries, the color changes slightly. The part, let's say, that you now see while it's wet, will become much stronger, much more intense. So please, be careful. I'm adding a bit more because it's still a little too dark. Let's try. The color I've created is perfect. Look how lovely and soft it is, like a delicate, creamy mousse. It's a bit like the underside of a sage leaf. I say underside because you know that sage has several colors. Anyway, today I'm taking advantage of this lovely chest of drawers, smooth and shiny, to show you how to make the best use of a short pile roller. Because many of you think that using a roller always leaves marks, especially when you have a smooth piece of furniture, but that's not the case. I assure you it turns out really velvety and flawless. There are tricks to it, of course. First of all, the right temperature. It's very hot right now. So you need to be careful not to rush and avoid doing it during the hottest hours. And then, above all, you need to use this roller properly. If you're a bit thrifty and perhaps anxious, not wanting to use too much paint, be careful, because if you wring out this roller and press it, you'll end up using twice as much. You need to be careful and understand that the roller should never be pressed down, because if you press it, it leaves marks and then you'll have to apply another full coat to cover everything. So you actually get the exact opposite result to what you're aiming for. You take the roller, run it under water, dampen it and then wrap it in a towel, squeezing it out thoroughly. I also use a brush, Mi Vogliano Tut, and I use a short pile roller, Cel Ho Corto, and I load my roller well. Obviously, I won't repeat that our bar has already been done on the furniture. You know this very well, and you also know that paint sticks to everything, but it's essential to thoroughly degrease the surface. Roll. I start from the center, I go here. I mustn't press down, I just guide the roller forwards and backwards. That's it. I'm not taking this color to do anything else. Besides, the roller is empty, it has nothing left to give, so I load it up again. I go here and load it up again. I leave it fairly loaded, start again from the center, forwards and backwards, so I spread it out evenly. And voila! This way I also remove the 2 stripes that are merging together. But be careful. Today, I don't just want to leave the coverage as it is with the roller, but I want to make it really beautiful, velvety, almost as if it were raw wood underneath. So, quickly, I take my brush, dip it a little into the paint, drain it, and apply it like this. In this way, I'm not painting, I'm just creating a texture. You can see this streaking coming out, which, for me, is wonderful for the style this piece of furniture is meant to have. Obviously, this is just the first coat. With the second, it will be complete. For the second coat everywhere, I use the roller and my brush again, starting once more from the center. As you can see, the second coat is truly amazing, all-encompassing, and of course I go over it with the brush as well, because I want to keep this beautiful texture that somewhat imitates a lovely raw wood. There we go. I go over it straight away while the paint is still very wet on the surface, so it obviously mustn't dry, otherwise I wouldn't get this effect anymore. And I get a really nice, pronounced groove. It really looks like raw wood. I carry on. Let's move on to the protective coat, because 2 coats of paint are perfectly dry and have evened out the tone across the whole piece of furniture. A matte protective finish, which I really like, and I'm already applying a coat now, even before decorating. This way, I'll have a beautiful, protected, smooth surface, and I can easily do all my touch-ups and work on it in the future. I've already got a tray, a roller. I've put in the short pile roller and grabbed a Maggie brush, which will help me achieve an even smoother application of the matte protective coating. The special feature of the matte protective coating is that it's invisible. It protects, but you can't see it at all. So, once it dries, you won't even remember you've applied it, unless you were the one who did it. Anyway, let's get started. I gently apply the protective coating over the entire surface, doing exactly as I did before. Because I don't want to lose the brush finished effect, so with my Maggie brush, I smooth the surface, like this. Obviously, you need to spread it out, but not too much, because we don't want to remove too much product. There we go. I reload the roller and carry on. With the roller, I start from the first section of protective coating I just applied. And with the Maggie brush, I smooth the surface. In this way, I go straight and create these grooves that look like raw wood. I've prepared my chest of drawers, which is nice and dry, because now I'm going to apply our new transfer, Sunlit Serenade. It has different shades of yellow, which I really liked a lot, paired with a fresh green tone, because usually shades like these are suitable for all seasons, but even more so in transitional periods, like spring and summer. The drawers, not by chance, are warm-toned. They're not a cold brown that would clash with the transfer. And at this point, I wanted to bring out the craftsmanship that was in the wood. If you pay attention, the edges and the inlay part come out in a very warm way, because they are different types of wood used for the inlay, especially in the corners. In my opinion, it really picks up the tone of the transfer as well. Actually, I was expecting a lighter tone, but now that they have this warm reddish hue, they look even better. Not all the details of this chest of drawers were chosen at random. In fact, the handles are still missing, which will be a very warm gold once I have lightly smoothed and sanded them. So everything has been carefully designed to create a chest of drawers that is light, elegant, but with very warm tones. If you notice, this transfer has an insert of words right here that goes right in the middle of the chest of drawers, you see? And I really love it because I specifically wanted it here, for this reason. This is the perfect chest of drawers for this transfer. Now, having applied the protective coating everywhere, even on the wooden drawers, I already have a protected base. What does that mean? That I can be sure I won't damage it. So, please remember, whenever you want to apply a transfer, always put a coat of protective varnish underneath and then a coat on top. Never put 2 coats of protective coating on the transfer, otherwise it will wrinkle. Now I'll have to measure carefully to make sure it's perfectly centered. And voila, I make it stick with my little wooden stick. I apply the whole design. Just gently use the little spatula to make the transfer stick to the entire surface. I really love this transfer. It looks absolutely fantastic on this base color. I go slowly and then press down the second piece. This lovely handle will be perfect. You just need to do this with very fine sandpaper. I've got a 320 grit and I sand very well the whole handle. I remove the top layer of oxidation and dirt. I've put a drop of jasmine oil here on my fine steel wool and now I rub it over the handle. It gives it a shine. But above all, it will be protected from future oxidation. Protected and shiny. And voila! Beautiful, isn't it? Do you like it? Now I'll set it up in its place and show it to you. This restyling is finished as well. I'd like to take credit for having designed everything on this piece of furniture, but we do deserve a little credit for choosing the right piece to restyle, because in reality, the inspiration came from a photo I saw on the redesign page. So that means someone has already used this transfer to mix it with a similar color on a piece of furniture that already had 2 drawers with raw wood. Or 1 drawer, I can't remember. This is to say that we can always take inspiration from the tutorials we see online and make them our own. We can change the color, we can have similar but not identical pieces of furniture. The fact remains that we can all always take inspiration from others. However, one important thing is to follow the guidelines, to follow the procedures, because that really makes a difference. But above all, use quality products like Magic Paint, because not all products are the same, not all paints are the same. Now, it was easy, because it was such a well-kept piece of furniture that it was really straightforward, it wasn't worn, the color wasn't damaged. I really painted it easily, it adhered straight away, and we stripped it quickly. What more could you want? Upcycling a piece of furniture like this is really easy, so give it a try. Of course, let me know in the comments if you liked this piece, and if you'd like to see more like this. And remember that Magic Paint is only available from official Magic Paint retailers, which you can find on the website magicpaint.it, listed by region. And if you can't get to a retailer because it's too far away, you'll find it on the only Italian website that sells it, which is elisa&Home.com. You'll never find it on other sites or on Amazon. Goodbye.